The Strange Ghost on Christmas Day, Episode 1. The little prince was found dead at his hut where he was sleeping. "The prince is dead, he is dead," the palace guards cried out to the queen. The queen froze out as she heard what the guard had said. That was the second time she was losing her son to the cold hands of death. Why are the ancestors being so harsh on me? What have I done to deserve a punishment from them? She cried out at the palace. The king heard her scream and wondered what was wrong. He walked out of his hut to meet the sad news of the dead prince. No, this is not happening. Not again, he shouted. The king placed his hands gently on the prince, checking to see if he was still breathing. But the young prince was gone far in death. Fake tears rolled down his cheeks, pretending to be sad about the death of his son, but deep down his heart, he was happy his plans worked out again. The king knew exactly what had happened to his son. He knew the cause of the unexpected death. It was his biggest secret, a secret he was never going to share with anyone. The king used a leaf to cover the dead prince, and then he said to the body, "Rest peacefully, my son." So the dead prince was taken out of the palace to where he would be buried, leaving the poor queen cry continuously, mourning her dead son. It was not an easy experience for the queen. Again, for the second time, she lost her son. The heir to the throne. The news spread quickly like light through the whole village. "The prince is dead. How can he be dead?" "Not again, and I feel sad for the queen," some the villagers continued to say as the news hit them so hard. Soon all the village elders, known as the king companions, were gathered around the king to mourn with him. They were not aware of who the king truly is or the secret he has been hiding from them. "My king, I am so sorry about your loss. I wonder why all this is happening. I mean, you just lost your only son some years ago, and now you still lost again. You need to be strong, my king. The gods will see you through," said one of the elders as they sat to discuss. The king sat down on his throne with his hands on his jaw, pretending to be sad. "What is my crime this time? Why are the gods taking all my son from me? I am nothing without a son, an heir to the throne," he cried. After the discussion with the king, all the village elders left, and the king was left alone to think at his palace. As night fell, the king found his wife, crying all alone at the hut. She could not accept the death of her son, not for the second time. "You cannot cry forever. I know it hurts losing our son. He is my son too. Please don't do this to yourself," he said to the queen. But the queen had a strong feeling that something was not just right. She could feel it after losing two sons without any cause. "I am not crying just because we lost our son. It's scary how I lost two sons without a reason. He died while sleeping, just like my first son. My king, something is not right in this palace," said the queen. And still the king kept convincing the queen that everything was fine. Maybe it was just the gods taking their son from them, and it may be for a better reason. It was becoming a scary village where the prince always dies 2 weeks before Christmas Day. The king kept losing all his sons, and when a prince is born, the villagers would rejoice and sing happily to the king. But the young prince would always die when it was almost time for Christmas. The villagers have no idea why this keeps happening, so one day they blame it on the queen for being a witch who has been killing all her sons, and they decided to chase her out and marry a new wife for the king. The queen pleaded with them, saying she was innocent, but none of the villagers listened to her. Her things were thrown out of the palace, instructing her to go and never step foot into the palace again. So after some time a new wife, a queen, was chosen for the king, hoping that the abomination of losing the prince would stop. Since they all believed the first queen was evil and had been the reason behind all the sudden death of the prince, the villagers expected a change after bringing a new wife for the king, but they were wrong. Sometime later, the new wife put to bed a child for the king, a male child, just like expected. Bringing a lot of joy to the whole village, the little prince grew faster as time went on. He was loved and cherished by the queen, but she was scared not to lose her son like the other queen did. When the prince became 12 years older, he was given the crown as a prince. After the king had crowned the young prince, he knew something very bad was going to happen soon. crowing the prince was a way of scarifying the prince to his secret, unknown to anyone. A few weeks later, while the young prince was on a walk with some guards, looking around the village, he suddenly began to cough out blood, making the palace guards afraid. What is happening to the prince? They say, holding on to the prince, and soon he fell down, struggling with his breath. The palace guards tried their best to save his life, but the young prince died, making the crown on his head fall to the ground. Not again. How do we tell the queen that the prince is dead? Said the guards. Fears and grief ran deep in their body as the little prince lay down dead. The guards became scared, not because they had a hand in his death, but they were scared of what the king might say and how the queen might feel losing another son. The first guard suggested they should take the prince to a secret place and hide for some time. Maybe he would wake up again. Taking him back home is dangerous, he spoke. No, that is not a good idea. The prince is dead, and there is no way he would be coming back to life. We have to take him back to the palace and let the king know before it is too late, said the second guard. I think there is something wrong somewhere in the palace. This is the 7th time the village is losing a prince, especially when it is closer to the end of the year. Do you think this is normal? The first guard asked. There is no time for questions. Let's take him back immediately, and don't put your mouth in the royal family, or else you might get into trouble, said the second guard. So they grabbed the dead prince from the ground and began their journey back home. The palace guards got more scared as they drew closer to the palace. The prince was left in their arms to protect, and now they are bringing him back to the palace dead. They walked with great fear into the palace. Sitting right there was the king, and by his right hand side was the queen. The guards cried out to the king from afar, with the prince laying dead on their hands, "Long live our brave king." While walking together with the prince, he suddenly began coughing out blood and fell down. We did our best to save him, but he gave up the ghost. Shocked, bounced on the queen as she could barely speak out. The news from the palace guard pierced her like a sharp blade. Tears were battling to come out of her eyes as she rushed out to the guards. What has happened to my son? Don't tell me he is dead, because I know he is alive, the queen said. She held him in her arms and pleaded with the dead prince to wake up again. The king rose up from the throne with a fake anger on his face, pretending to be angry and shocked with the news of his dead son. The anger displayed on his face made the palace guard fall on their knees, pleading with the king to forgive them for not protecting his son. You took my son, my only son, out there on the street and brought him back to me dead. You even have the guts to bring him back to me after you have succeeded in killing my own. The king roared at the guards pleading with the king, saying they were innocent and had no idea what had happened to the little prince. But the king was stuck to his words, saying the palace guards had taken his son out to end his life. He knew this was his only way of covering his deeds by placing the blame on the guards. Soon the news spread quickly into the village. The prince is dead again and was killed by the palace guards. A meeting was held at the palace immediately, and there the king concluded that the 2 palace guards would be sentenced to death for the crime they committed. Some of the village elders were not in support of the judgment, for they believed the palace guards were innocent. My king, I am sorry for interrupting, but I think the 2 palace guards are innocent. We cannot judge them without a proper investigation on this matter, said an elder. No one can tell me what to do. This is my son we are talking about. You don't know what it means to lose a son, just keep quiet. The king shouted and said his words will be the final decision. That night, even though the queen was mourning her son, she could not allow the king to proceed with his plan of hanging the 2 guards to death. She knew her son's death had nothing to do with the guards. So the queen pleaded with the king to have mercy on the guards. I don't think there is a need of giving them such a hard punishment. I am sure they are innocent, said the queen. Well, king paid no attention to the queen. He still insisted the guards would pay for the evil deeds, and so it happened. The guards were hung to death in the middle of the bush as a punishment from the king. making the whole village believe that truly the prince was killed by the palace guards. Well, as time goes on, the new queen got pregnant for the second time. And this time, while she was pregnant, sometimes she would sneak to a secret place to pray, pleading with the ancestors to protect her unborn child, so she put to bed again another child, a male. She always stayed by her child, waited, and always prayed to the gods to protect her child from any mysterious death, and she called him Prince Asad, meaning he would be a king one day. When the child became 12 years old, it was time for him to be crowned as a prince and be taught how to live like a prince. The king knew this was his time to put out his evil plan, and like he always does, he was ready to sacrifice the Prince Asafar to his secret that no one knows. All he needed to do was put the crown on the prince, and the prince would die in a few days. A day before Prince Asafar would be crowned the king, he was staying alone in his room, and suddenly a ghost appeared to him. The ghost looked just like him. Asafar, the ghost spoke. He turned around and got shocked and scared of the ghost. "Do not be afraid, I am not here to hurt you. Tomorrow you would be given a crown as a prince. Do not accept the crown from your father," the ghost echoes. The young prince tried to find out who the ghost was and why it was telling him to reject the crown from his father. "Who are you, and why are you telling me this?" he asked with fear. "Just listen to my advice, little one, because if you accept the crown, you would die." The voice echoed and disappeared, leaving Prince Asafar confused. Thank you for watching The Strange Ghost on Christmas Day. This is episode 1 and 2. Stay tuned for episode 3 and 4, and subscribe to our channel.